Hello, everyone. So excited about this webinar. We have I don't even know how to describe him, ultra famous, maybe father of SEO. I don't know, Rand Fishkin. It's who I learned SEO from. And Mike King joining us today to talk about this Google leak that you've probably heard about. It's pretty much all that's been in the news feeds for me for the last 2 weeks. So just in case we have anyone here who is not familiar with what we are talking about, Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you just to give a brief summary of what we are referring to and why this is important.
Yeah, so there's a leak of documentation related to what's called the Content Storage API, which shows some insights into the different features that Google is looking at for Google search. A gentleman named Irfan Azimi ran this leak, and then Rand shared it with me, and we did some analysis together to then share it with the world. Also want to give a shout out to Dan Petrovich, who had also found it before Irfan did, and he had done a lot of his own analysis and shared that with me too. In fact, he had turned it in for a bug bounty with Google, and so that's how I knew it was real. While everyone was like, "Oh, is this real?" And yeah, it's important because it's like the clearest indication that we've ever gotten of what Google is actually looking at for computing results for organic search.
Yeah.
It's a great summary. Rand, do you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say, one of the things that I did to try and validate whether this was real, because like Mike, I had a lot of skepticism when Irfan first showed it to us. I didn't know who he was before. Mike, I don't think you knew who he was.
Nah, me neither.
So, this sort of source, initially he wanted to be anonymous and we had never heard of him, right? So when someone comes forward and claims to have documentation like this, it's a little sketchy, right? And so we did our validation. I talked to 3 folks from Google, ex-Google engineers, and one of them said, I absolutely will not talk about this and I won't even look at it. And 2 of them verified that it was real. One of those told me, oh, this is actually every feature that is in Google search, except where specified. So there are a few private things that you have to, for example, there's like a whitelist for COVID information that comes from a separate repository. So you can't see it in the documentation. You have to call a separate thing. There's a few references to a corporate website for Google where you need special login permission. But otherwise, my understanding is these 14,000 features represent all of the features that Google search, YouTube, Maps, all the Google search. I think even Android and Lens are in there. So this is the whole shebang.
It's wild. So the focus of what I want to talk about today, because I know we're limited to an hour, which I feel like we could talk about this for 5-10 hours easily. I want to talk about like what we should do with this information as marketers, because we've got this, giant technical looking document with all these things. It's like, okay, cool. So what? So I'm going to be posing some questions, but I also want to try and really give credit to people that showed up live. So if you have questions for these 2, please put them in the chat and we will do our best to get through as many of them as we can. So I picked a few from various articles that you 2 have written. And I want to start with one of the big ones, which is click-through rate. So Rand, you did this test like many, many years ago, right? I think it was at MozCon that kind of showed that clearly click-through rate impacts ranking. Like when you had a bunch of people go and click on this website, it actually increased. But for some reason, over the last few years, all these SEOs have been like, oh no, it's not actually a factor. And maybe Google also said it's not a factor. Like, why do people, I'm kind of confused as to why SEOs would even bother arguing with you when you clearly showed that it works. What do you have to say? Like, why do you think it's a mystery? It really shouldn't be a mystery.
No, So I think, look, a few things are true. So I did that test. My God, Mike, like 16 times between 2011 and 2013, right? I used to, whatever event I was at a Search Love, I was at an SMX, I was at MozCon, I was at the Raleigh SEO meetup, and I'd be like, hey, let's all do it. It's really fun, right? Like, let's go search for wedding dresses Raleigh, and then we're all going to click on the 6th result. Everybody disconnect from Wi-Fi, go on your phone so that it looks like it's distributed. And sure enough, you get it from number 6 to number 3 or number 5 to number 2, or at MozCon, I think what the famous one was like page 2 to position 1 in the 45 minutes I was on stage, right? And that one got big. After that one, I think that was MozCon, maybe 2013 or 14, something like that. After that one, it never worked again. It didn't. I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't get folks to do it. According to our friend who gave us the leak, he claims that he talked to a Google engineer who said they built a system to shut down that sort of manipulation, right? Of specifically going around to a big event and doing that, or putting something on Twitter. That was the other one. When I put it publicly on Twitter, back in the day, I supposedly have lots of followers on Twitter today, but it's seen by almost no one, right? Like smaller than my Threads following, which is 5,000 people. But back in the day when I had 400,000 Twitter followers who were active there, I could put up a link to a Google search, get a click. Anyway, Google shut that down, which I think is smart. You don't want people like me or anybody else being able to manipulate the rankings, even for a short period of time. These tests usually only lasted 24, 48 hours, right? Which makes sense. But then, lots of people in the search community started saying they were all flukes, or maybe that worked at one time, but it doesn't work anymore, or Google never actually used it. It was other things that happened. When you talked about it at MozCon, people link to it or something else. I don't know why that denial exactly existed. I don't have a good answer to that.
Well, I can tell you that I've confirmed with a bunch of tests here, it absolutely still works. I don't think it's a thing of the past. Oh, for sure. And not just organic rankings, but also local pack rankings for people that are listening. We accidentally tested this because I was testing something to see how clicks are tracked in Google Search Console and Google Analytics. And I noticed that Search Console is just missing all these clicks from the local pack and tried to figure out why. So we ran these tests, not trying to manipulate rankings, trying to do that. And our rankings went way up. And I have monitored people that are doing this for a longer period of time, and it absolutely does stick. As long as the patterns keep happening, it sticks.
Right. So I think the pattern is the thing that makes sense, right? So if it's an outlier, like, hey, for 1 hour on the day of MozCon, there's a bunch of searches and then it drops. I think Google's going to treat that differently than, hey, over a long period of time, it looks like people prefer clicking on this bar or this restaurant in this neighborhood instead of these other ones.
Mm-hmm. And I'll put this up on the screen because this is something that was interesting. I got to speak with a Black Hat SEO last year, and she talked about manipulating driving direction requests and showed all these before and after screenshots, basically the rankings before and the rankings after. And she's perfected it. I'm not saying go do this for the record, but it does work, which is headspace, which is really interesting. So
I don't want to get bad driving directions. Google already sends me in some strange places. Now I'm wondering, is it you SEO people who are making me drive through South Seattle in the wrong spots?
No, oh my God, no. What she would do is she would actually fake driving direction requests. So make it look like a bunch of people are going to this business when they're actually not doing that, to make it look like that business is reputable and prominent. So I'm not saying to do this. So this is the default answer to oh, clicks matter. Let's go do CTR manipulation. So my question to you both, and I'll start this with Mike. So obviously we're saying that don't do that, but what should you do if you're a business that wants to get more out of knowing that this is a ranking factor?
I think the big picture thing is be a brand, but I think bringing the distance with SEO, just making it a lot smaller. I think we all are so quick to just throw up a website and, make our content and not really focus on, is this going to be a sticky user experience? Is this going to yield users clicking and staying on the site? And also, it may not necessarily be just staying on the site because in some cases their query may just yield a short visit where they get their question answered and that's that. So what you're also trying to make sure they don't do is go back and do a different search that is very similar to the existing search, because that's another indication to Google that this was not a successful search. And so again, it just really comes down to making sure that you are best aligned with what they're looking for for those queries, and you have a brand that they recognize, so they're more likely to click on your result.
Rand, do you have anything to add to
Cool.
that?
Yeah, it seems my camera has gone funny, but I would just say that building a brand, I completely agree with Mike. I think in local, especially, that starts with product. It starts with product and experience, and the product and experience that you have with a local business is something that unfortunately a lot of business owners don't listen to local SEOs on, but they should. Like marketers and SEOs need to also be able to have some influence on your product. Like, hey, look, people are not happy with this sandwich. People aren't happy with this type of experience. They don't love when the tip machine automatically defaults to 30% tip, whatever it is. And as you make those things better, your local rankings can also improve because people prefer and want to go to you, and they talk about you and they share you. That's how you build not only a brand, but a brand people prefer.
And this is a good question that came in. That's valid. Do you think people are just going to start doing more clickbots and CTR manipulation? Like, I have a feeling this is going to become more popular because of this leak.
Definitely, they will, of course. I mean, there are already people doing that, right? Like there are services just for that. So I think it's inevitable because, that's just how marketers are. Whenever we find kind of like an exploit, for lack of a better term, we run it into the ground. But at the same time, I think Google is already, smart enough to understand that level of click manipulation. Back when everyone was trying to clean up their Google Suggest or their Google Instant results, that's when people were using Mechanical Turk to drive clicks at scale and so on. So it's not something Google hasn't seen before, and they're definitely going to look to combat it. And, as we just discussed with the test that Rand was doing live, Google has definitely looked to do things to counteract that. So I think, yes, more people will start using clickbots, but I think that Google is just going to get real hip to it. I think they're probably already, revving up the engines to counteract this because they know this leak has happened. But I think the reality is that, yes, we're going to see a lot more people using clickbots.
Now, Rand, you said something in one of your articles that I thought was really interesting as a takeaway. You were talking about the idea of zero-click search and how, we try and keep everybody on the platform, right? Like I think you gave an email as an example. You try to keep everybody in the email, so you kind of summarize, and now you're like, well, maybe I should try and get them to actually go to my website because that's going to help my ranking. Is that something that we should be testing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the big lessons for me from this leak is we had heard from what's his name, Pandu Nayak, and in Paul Har's resume, and in the email from, I can't remember the guy who emailed basically like the executive team at Google and Danny Sullivan and said, hey, Nav Boost is the by far the most important thing in our rankings right now. And all the other, Mike, did you see that email where he was like, oh, all the other engineering teams were jealous of the Nav Boost team because their thing got pushed all the way up. I thought it was delightful. It was so like corporate-y, like, oh man, I've been working on links and they made links not so important. It felt very real to me when I read that email. This is from the Department of Justice's trial against Google last year. But in those cases, I think there was questions in the search community about, well, what's inside Nav Boost? What is Nav Boost really? And now you can see everything that's in Nav Boost. You go to the documents, you search for Nav Boost, you can see everything that's in there. So marketers, search community folks can quibble about, well, which ones are they actually using? But it's very hard to quibble with, hey, what is Nav Boost? Nav Boost is Chrome data. It is Chrome clicks and usage data. It's what URLs do people visit. It's the click stream, right? Which, Mike, I have my current conspiracy theory is that Google was absolutely behind the shutdown of Jump Shot, by the way.
Ooh.
You heard it here first.
Anyway.
So I'm going to steer this. So paid search was another thing that people are talking about. There's always been this talk in the SEO world about how, if you run ads, you rank better and yada, yada. And of course, Google's come out again and again and said, no, that's not true, like blah, blah, blah. But I think there's like a connection there that we've been missing that this kind of clarifies, which is like, if you are running paid ads, you probably are getting more branded search. You're getting more people talking about you in general because you're running ads. So is that the missing connection that we've been kind of missing this entire time?
I think I think that's true 100%, but I also think that it's always been clear that there is a threshold of performance based on the position you are in paid search. And that has led to demotions in paid search, irrespective of what you're paying, what your quality score is. Google will yank you out of the first position if you're not getting enough clicks, right? And so we never really thought about that. I mean, some people thought about it, but we never had clarity on that being possible for organic search. And so now we know that. We know that they've looked at it and said, like, okay, you're ranking number one, but everybody's clicking position 4. Yeah, number one needs to come down. So the interplay between the channels, like we all know that there's a halo effect. We all know that if you're, position one in paid, position one in organic, you're going to get like a 30% boost in both positions. So I think there's also the aspect of the user, believing in you as a brand from seeing that. And again, that's reflected in that idea of there being a threshold for click-through rate that's expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out there that I don't think it's just paid search. In fact, if I were a betting man, I'd say Google has some controls around, on average, we see this much lift when this many paid ads are showed to people, and we're gonna, remove the sort of Chrome data signals in a commensurate fashion. However, billboards on the highway, that drives a lot of search and brand preference. Radio ads, podcast advertising, sponsoring events, all the offline things, television commercials, all the offline things that you do that almost certainly lead a person to go grab their phone or go to their computer and start typing in things and searching for things. That provides a lift, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think, do you remember this Mike, I'm sure you've driven through Philly and you've seen there's like an SEO shop that has all these
One
billboards.
SEO.
Yeah.
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 I
They
call
got all
that I
these.
call that northbound marketing.
I love
Do
it.
they only do it when you're driving out of Philly? Like not if you're driving
Yeah,
in?
yeah.
Well,
It's on 95 when you're leaving Philly.
so there's a local plumbing service in Seattle that's they started a long time ago, but they just started running a huge number of billboards all around the city. And we don't have very many billboards in Seattle. And I was like, oh, their campaign is pretty clever. They have like these little, oh, when your sink is going auga auga, who do you call? And then they have a thing, and the auga auga is spelled out, and it looks pretty fun. They do a nice job of branding. I bet they're getting some brand preference from that and some searches. And sure enough, when I went and looked in local, I was like, oh, I've never seen them before. Boom, there they are, number 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can confirm. We interviewed a guy, Roger Wakefield, last year, who's a plumber, who talked about this. And he was saying that he actually noticed his ranking on Google improve like crazy once he started doing well on YouTube. He wasn't doing any SEO, he was doing YouTube. Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but to
yeah.
be fair, that also creates more of these signals that we're talking about, right? You're creating more search volume around these terms, which then creates the signals where they're connecting it to entities. So I don't think it's just like because you're doing these advertising in different channels. I think that there's also these user signals that are created as a result of those.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
For sure.
for years, Googlers have stood on stage and they've said, don't go directly get links. Go do things that would earn you links. I don't see why they couldn't just come right out and be like, also traffic. Don't just go get traffic, right? Don't just buy click bots and like fake things. Go do things that are going to get you real traffic to your site. Because if you do those things, Google will see it and they'll recognize it. And when there's good ones, right, they have squashed and unsquashed clicks, right? They're looking at good things. They're controlling by a whole bunch of stuff. They look at patterns you can see in the data, right? Someone asked in the comments like, hey, what about links? And one of the things is if your links go way up, but nobody's clicking, those
Mm-hmm.
links are not going to count, right? They're going to demote them. I am suddenly thinking about link building very differently. I thought, when I started SparkToro, I
100%.
needed, yeah. Like
we're
I
going to
thought I
talk about
needed.
links.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about links. I just want
Okay.
our audience to know. I feel like everybody's eyeballs are popping out the moment you say links. So takeaway here basically is that branding as a whole, while hard to measure, can actually have a direct influence on your ranking on Google. Other things that you might be doing as a business other than just a straight SEO.
Why wouldn't you? Like, honestly,
Well, yeah.
I mean, here's my best case for that. Google is not everything. Google is not the only place that people go. I don't care if we're talking about local search or web search. There are a lot of people who don't start their journey with Google. Be in the places your audience pays attention. Please, for God's sake, like go think about what newsletters, what email newsletters does my audience read? What events do they go to? Where are they driving through? What are they watching? What are they listening to? If you can answer those questions through audience research, you can do it with surveys or interviews or software. And then you are present in those places, especially with a message that resonates and a brand people like. Guess what? Google is going to treat you well also. That's their whole goal. They get signals from other places, they put them together in this fancy system, and then they rank the ones who are, important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because if you create this brand that doesn't come up in Google, that is bad search quality for Google. So they have to do the things to make sure that you are present there. Like, imagine if, BMW was bad at SEO and they didn't show up, but you're looking for BMW and you don't see that website. That's not a poor reflection on BMW. That's a poor reflection on Google. So yeah, being a brand is definitely like the big play here. And again, all the things that you're going to do as a brand, whether it's billboards or YouTube ads or whatever it is, are going to create those signals that Google is looking for.
Yeah, I want to talk about links because, man, so many questions around links. So there's two things I want to talk about, which is one is the idea of mentions without links, and the other is the concept of no follow links. And I've got a bunch of specific things here. Before we get to that, I just want to have a quick 30-second break to hear from our sponsor. So this webinar is actually sponsored by Sterling Sky, which is my agency. And Richard, I think you have a video that you're going to roll, and then we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's attorney Justin Lovely, and I know a lot of lawyers have problems finding an SEO and a digital marketing company that they can trust. Well, my secret weapon that everybody has been asking me about that I've never revealed until now is Sterling Sky. These guys have done tremendous work for me, allowing me to dominate my local market here. They're handling my LSAs, they're handling my pay-per-click, they're handling our SEO, and most importantly, they're making sure that we're ranking in the top 3 in that local pack, because local marketing is so important. Reach out to Dave and Joy over there at Sterling Sky. They'll do tremendous work for you. Not a lot of legal lawyers in the personal injury field understand or know about this company, because like everything else, it kind of goes to once every cat gets out of the bag. But they asked me to do this, and without hesitation, I can fully recommend Sterling Sky for all your digital marketing needs.
Thanks, Richard. All right, so I have this question here from Miriam. So I'm going to put this up here. So let's talk about. I know, we had to, right?
My gosh, there's so many rock stars in the comments. It's amazing. I saw Gianluca in there, Amanda Natividad's in there. This is incredible.
I saw Andrew in there.
They showed up to see you guys. So
incredible.
Let's talk about when a business gets mentioned, let's say in a local newspaper or something online, and they don't get the link. Did the leak talk about how this is treated since there's no clicks going on? What is your take on this? Let's start with Rand.
Oh man,
Mike.
Okay.
Mike. Never mind. We'll start with Mike.
Go to Mike.
All right, go to Mike.
So there's a ton of mentions in there, but there's nothing to indicate that mentions are treated as links. It's more that the mentions are reinforcing the entities. And so Google can then connect the entities from the page, use the information and the relationships when they're surfacing you in the different areas like knowledge graph, or just better understanding what the page is about. So there's still a lot of value from, getting mentioned, but not a lot of value from a perspective of them being treated as, links or citations. So I know that Rand had historically talked about the idea of mentions being links, but again, we didn't see anything that directly indicated that.
Yeah. I was going to add, the only thing that's weird to me is am I wrong? I think the web ref, is that the name of the repository? So web ref is used for links and for mentions and for entity mentions.
Right.
Does that, I don't think that means, like Mike said, I don't know that means they're treated like links, but does it mean they could be called in a weighting system or ranking system? possible?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we don't know how this stuff is used downstream. Like they may in the scoring functions treat them as links, but again, we just didn't get any like clear indication of that specifically in the docs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like there's really interesting things in there. You know, someone was asking about no follow right before we went to the break, and no follow is included. I found this fascinating. I didn't realize this was the case. I hadn't even read this before. I did a quick search while the ad was running. Whether this is a no follow link, if the page has multiple links to the same URL, all of them must be no follow to set this field.
Yep.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot of different things in there where they talk about if you link to the same thing more than once, we're not going to count it. And what you're saying is like if it's not consistent, we're not going to say one of them is no follow and the other isn't. So it just goes to show that across the system, even if we're talking about things like rel canonical tags and no follow tags and so on, they are looking for consistency. And when you give them something that's inconsistent, they'll either ignore it or they'll just choose the first one that they found.
Yeah, that entity mention score, I thought that was really cool. They have like a confidence weighting, between 0 and 1, where they will try and like figure out if a mention of an entity on a web page is actually referring to the sort of official entity that they think it is. And they use data around the mention too, right? Like people have long suspected that text around a link is used. That's in there,
Yep.
right? Yep. So you can see that they look for like token distance, or I can't remember exactly, Mike, but token distance from where the anchor is to try and find it. That was fascinating to me. I was like, oh yeah, oh look at that.
So I know that when it comes to citations, which is what Miriam was kind of asking, we actually tried to test this, like citations that mention a business without linking to them. The sites that don't have website fields on them are such garbage that we couldn't even get the citations indexed. Like we tried to do a test on this and we're like, you know what? Any reputable site these days that is a directory, a local business directory, would have a website field. So we weren't able to test this because the ones that didn't were just so low quality that they don't matter anymore. So that was that part. On the no follow thing, I think what this kind of backs up is the idea that no follow links do provide value and can pass PageRank. And there was an SEO that I was listening to recently named Kyle Roof who did some testing around this and said that basically no follow links help your ranking when those links are coming from sources that get organic traffic. So if you have, let's say, a Forbes article that links to you and that Forbes article ranks really well on Google, gets lots of traffic, doesn't matter if they no follow the link, that link still is passing PageRank.
So Rand actually proved that too around the same time he was doing the click experiments. I remember he was like reaching out to us like, hey, can you link to us or link to these pages and then no follow them? Or no follow them first and then remove the no follow. And it was something like pages would rank, let's say they would rank like 50 at first, they would rank 20 with the no follow links, and then we would remove the no follows, and then they would be in the top 10. So those weren't even pages that were getting a ton of traffic. Like we've just seen it be true that no follows can have value no matter what.
Yeah. So the action item here is like, don't stress over the fact that a link is no followed. Like if you got it from a great resource because you're doing PR or something like that, you likely are getting an SEO benefit from it. So stop obsessing about it. That's the action item.
I want to say one thing about this. There is, I mean, Mike, we talked about it in the early stage that I thought was fascinating, right? If a link gets if a page gets no traffic and the links on that page get no Chrome traffic, right? No Chrome clicks, the likelihood that Google will devalue that link is quite high. That's not in local specifically, that's in web search. Does it apply to local? Hard to know for sure. But I would strongly suggest that if you are a local citation and link builder, you should really probably focus on the PR angle. That's going to be the most secure thing. Last week, Mike, you must have seen this too. My Google Search Console looks insane.
Insane.
Right? Insane.
Spikes like crazy.
Yeah, because if you and all our rankings too, right? Like we went from not even top 10 for audience research. We're like number 1 organic. Why is that? We didn't, because a whole bunch of outlets, press outlets, the Verge and, the Atlantic and Gadget and 1,000 other ones, all talking about this Google leak, mentioned audience research software firm SparkToro, whose founder, Rand Fishkin, found this leak or publicized this leak or whatever it is, along with Mike King. And so all of our rankings are just skyrocketing. Like we ranked for a whole bunch of stuff we never ranked for before. Now it's already falling, right? Because I think those signals are going back down. But this strongly suggests to me that, gosh, if you can be in the press regularly, that's a superpower.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting the evidence why, or what we saw to indicate that. So basically, the way the index works is it's not just one thing, right? Like I think we collectively as SEOs think of it as just this like box or this one database somewhere. There's certain layers to the index, and one layer is kept in memory. So like RAM on your machine, right? Another layer is kept on like solid state hard drives. And then another layer, which is kind of like the graveyard for pages, is on like standard regular HDD hard drives. And so you want to be in the flash memory section of the index because they know these are pages that are getting looked at regularly, and they're just like, people are visiting these sites. If you get links from those pages, those are the most powerful links to get. We think of links from like a DA perspective or a DR perspective, or whatever measure you're using, but we have no indication of where you fall in the index. Now we know, and the real kind of shortcut for it is, okay, if you rank in the top 3, you're probably in that flash memory. Or if you're in the first page, you're probably in that flash memory. And so you want to get links from those sorts of sites. And like Rand is saying, typically if you're going after digital PR outlets, you have a higher likelihood for those pages to be in flash memory.
I love this analogy.
So we had a question about rebuilding some of these experiments. I can tell you, we've already experimented this stuff. It was good timeliness, but it absolutely works. Like we've done some experiments that we'll be sharing on our YouTube channel in the next few months, where we actually no-followed links on our forum and specifically linked them to specific pages and just to see what happened. And we had a video show up on Google that wasn't even there before period because I linked to it from the forum, like within a day. I tried it on Reddit too. Works on Reddit. All links on Reddit are no-followed. And so I tried to see if like Google again is looking at those, and if we are to expect a lot of spam on Reddit, the answer is yes. Links on Reddit can help SEO if those threads get organic traffic. If you just post this like dead thread on Reddit that gets no organic traffic, then you're not going to see anything. So again, being active in communities that are really well visually on Google, like that show up all over the place, that's the action item there.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing on experimentation, because I don't know if y'all remember, but there was a point when I spoke at MozCon and, a certain Googler got really upset with me, accused me of whatever he accused me of. And it really killed the signal of what I was trying to say at MozCon. And it was exactly this: we need to be experimenting more. I really love the test that Rand was doing. I really love what like the old school SEOs were doing when they were just like, okay, well, we don't know anything. We've got to test things. We've got to have different sites that we can test things on. And, there's this fear right now that we're not going to hear as much from the Google spokespeople because of what has happened here. And I think that's fine. I think it's better if we spend more time using the power of our community to be doing this, sharing what we've learned, and continuing to refine our understanding. Because anything that they're going to tell us is always going to be aiming for the middle anyway, because they can't be specific about everybody's use case. But what we know definitively, and what I think we've known for a while, is that the algorithm works differently for different verticals. And so if everybody's different vertical is doing all these tests and surfacing what is going on and how it actually operates, we're going to be better educated in optimizing moving forward. And that's all I ever wanted. It was never to shame anybody. It was to encourage us to take ownership of our channel.
Mm-hmm. Just to clarify, somebody just wanted to make sure they understood this right, Rand, when you were talking about that, creating all those no-follow links. Can you just clarify, you created them and then removed them?
Yeah. So we created the links with no follow. Then we asked everyone to remove the no follow, and we saw the rankings go up. But this was a long time ago, right? And there was no, there would have been very little Chrome traffic visiting those specific pages and clicking those specific links. So I would not put my, hang my hat on an experiment run in 2012. That's a dozen years ago now. Like, it's long, but I would hang my hat on doing experiments like that again. And I think it's wonderful to write about them and publish them and talk about them. One of the things I think is so beautiful, and I'm going to give credit to an unlikely source here. I believe that Danny Sullivan, who now I have a lot of challenges with what he does for a living now, and it frustrates me a lot, but he built something really special and beautiful in the search marketing world, a community of people who cared about each other, who cared about sharing. He was the first one at his events, way back in the day, to say, I want to put great speakers on stage. We're going to share things transparently. I want this community to have more journalistic integrity. I want, fairness. And he was quite progressive in terms of trying to get many more women on stages back in the day. And I think like that spirit carries through. It was certainly something that I took a ton of lessons from, right? I wanted to be him when I grew up.
He's wonderful.
Less so today, but
Yeah.
but very much so in those early years.
Yeah, I mean, Danny's platform was the first to put me on stage, so I've got nothing but love for the guy. Like, I get that, he he's on the dark side of the force now, but I still think that he looks to do whatever he can from within that environment, right? Like, I don't personally feel as though he's misled me on anything, like, and I think he'll speak up as much as he can. And I think he also advocates for us internally. So, I don't have all the details of what his job is, but I think he gets, to some degree, not completely fair treatment just because he's joined Google.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, here's how I feel about it. Just like the end of Return of the Jedi, I hope one day, we're on the Death Star and Danny's there and he's like, you were right about me.
Oh, gosh. All right. So we had a question from the audience. The stuff we've been talking about with link building, is there anything that people should be testing or trying differently when it comes to internal linking?
Yeah. So, okay. You want to go, Ren?
No, I haven't seen anything on internal links.
So there actually is some stuff in there about internal links, specifically as it relates to Penguin. And so it refers to internal links as local anchors. So in the documentation, they don't call it just like links. Like, all these features are in these different buckets called anchors. And so when they talk about internal links, it is the local anchors. And so there's something related to Penguin in there where they talk about dropped local anchors. And it's this idea that you basically can't spam your own site with local anchors. So what it kind of reinforces is that, you should be using your internal linking structure to reinforce these keywords that you're looking to rank for. It's not so much like, oh, I got to get 100,000 links with or external links with anchor text around the keywords that I'm targeting. It's get whatever links you can. And then if you can get anchor text, great, but obviously don't go overdoing it because, of course, they're looking for that. But leverage your internal linking structure to better brand those pages for what it is that you're targeting.
Yeah, this is fascinating. So there's an anchor accumulator, and then they count and discount certain anchors to the anchor accumulator. And am I seeing this right, that this is also referenced by the entity mentions anchors? Okay, we'll look at it later. Sorry, this is not the time.
Yeah, no, one last question on links, and then I'm going to switch topics. So the last question, press releases is a big thing that we hear about a lot, right? Given this information, do you think press releases are worth doing still these days?
Do they get clicks?
That is a good question. Yeah, that is the question you should be asking.
I think press releases can work if they get picked up on other sites. And then those sites are the pages that, get the actual clicks and so on. But in my experience, it's very rare that those press release tools are distributing or at least getting everything published on these bigger sites, right? Like the way it looks to me is that these PR site or excuse me, press release sites will try to distribute to all the places, but then on the other side, those sites are pretty selective about what they actually publish. So if you can get through, then yeah, it can be valuable. But then you still got to worry about the whole duplication or deduplication aspect of it and Google discounting those links anyway. So I think, if you're like, hey, I want to spend, $1,000, I don't even know what they cost at this point because I don't do them like that. But if I'm going to spend time and money on a press release, I'd rather spend that on creating a piece of content that's just going to naturally get great links and, use that to redistribute that link equity throughout your site rather than focusing on like, okay, every time we deploy something, we're going to do a press release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can say with like, we've seen press releases, they often say, oh, you got listed on these 25 sites, and they'll have the links to your press release on those 25 sites. They're all exactly the same. The majority of them aren't even in Google's index because Google sees that they already have a copy of that exact thing and don't index all of them.
Yeah.
So
one thing that I don't think is talked about, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
One thing I don't think is being talked about enough is just how hard it is to get pages indexed right now. I think this is also a function of the helpful content update where Google is earlier in the pipeline deciding like, are we even going to crawl this page based on what we've seen in the patterns for these URLs? And so you really got to be thoughtful about the content that you're trying to get up there because they're really just saying, we're not going to just index it just because you made it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Has to be something different than what they already have in their trillions of search results. Okay, there's a topic I really want to hammer on, which is this idea of topic authority.
Joy, Mike,
yes.
I don't want to interrupt you guys, but I saw that our friend Richard mentioned that there's like 450 people on this webinar live right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to have them
click
search
something?
for some?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Tell me what, Rand. Go ahead.
Well, friends, you tell me in the comments if enough of you are in, if you are willing to do some searches and click on some results and you want to see what happens, would we like to do that? And if the answer is yes, from a bunch of people, then I think we should. I've got an idea. I have a search we can
My
test
vote is
right
we
now.
should do it for local pack rankings, like a local pack, like a Google Business Profile. Let's click on there. But yeah, I agree. Put it in the comments, and we'll come back to that in like 5-10 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. I'll share my screen and I'll walk you through what to search for and click on.
Amazing.
And then let's give it a try.
Okay.
We might not have enough people, but we might.
No, and they're from all over the place. So if you want like diversity there, yeah. Okay, so topical authority is something that is like a thing. So this is something that we have seen in the local SEO space. Let's say you have an HVAC company, right? And they're known for HVAC. So Google knows they're all about HVAC, air conditioning, heating, whatever. And then they're like, we're also going to start doing plumbing. But they're not a plumber currently, and Google doesn't associate them topically as a plumber. How do you break into a new category? This is something small businesses face a lot. What do you think is a good strategy for that? Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, and I want to start a little bit by how they're figuring this out. So one of the things that they talked about in the documentation was this idea of there being a site level vector. So for anyone that doesn't know what a vector is, vector embeddings are the same technology that are used for ChatGPT and things like that. And what you're doing is you're plotting words or pages or sentences or paragraphs in multidimensional space. And so they're coordinates that represent your content, right? So Google has a version of this on the site level. And what they do is they compare new pages against the site level vector. So if you're a site that, would you say plumbing is the new thing? What was the old thing?
HVAC, so like air conditioning repair, stuff like that.
Right. So you have a site that's all HVAC content, and then you launch one new page that's about plumbing. That is not going to align with what Google knows your site to be about. So you can't just have one page. And this goes back to this idea of topical clustering. So if you want to go after this plumbing category, then you need to probably launch like 5 or 10 pages about plumbing and everything or not everything, but a lot of things that are related to that. So then your site vector starts to include plumbing, and it doesn't seem like it's so far away from what you're typically talking about. And I think this is actually a really big problem that people need to think about, because what we historically have done in SEO, specifically for going after links, was going after more like lifestyle topics that are like tangentially related to your subject matter. It's not enough to be like, I'm now going to have a page about interior decorating because I know that's going to attract people who may also need HVAC services. That's going to be too far away from your core content, or this idea of a site radius that they have in the documentation. And you need to do that, strategically, where you're bringing more of that new topic in there, so you're seen as an authority on that topic.
Mike, there was a really good question from Matthew Bay. Would changing your plumbing vector potentially downgrade your HVAC ranking? Could you harm yourself?
Yeah, it would be more diluted around that subject area. And so that's where we start getting back into the ideas of things like silos, right? Like if you have this one subdirectory that's all about that subject area, they may have a vector on that subdirectory level that represents that. And then they're saying like, okay, well, how do you compare to other sites on this? Are you an authority? Do you map to that keyword set better than other sites? But if they're looking at your whole site from that perspective, then you may be diluting the HVAC stuff a bit as well.
Yep.
So this is a good question. So at what point do you want a different website then? Because like some people's solution would just be go get an exact match domain now as the plumber and start over. Is that like, when should you look at that as a solution?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to like how well you can support that subject area. And also, again, you got to remember that this is just one of the 14,000 signals that we're considering here, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean just because you've diluted that vector a bit that you can't still rank for those queries. You're just going to have a more difficult time. So if it's the sort of thing where you're like, hey, I want to do 1,000 pages on plumbing, then maybe you should just have like a plumbing site instead.
So I'll throw one more specific at you, and then let's get to Rand's test. So we used to see a lot with realtors. There's an SEO company that would post pages about gardening tips and restaurants in particular cities. And these pages would actually get some traffic, obviously no conversions. Is that a bad idea to do that because you're diluting all the different topics and different things that Google's associating you with?
I kind of want to urge people to test that to a certain extent. I'm not sure the documentation has some kind of proof positive that that's going to go badly for you. I will say, I mean, when we're thinking about this topical stuff, one thing, for example, SparkToro has this gift guide that we do every winter, like every November. Amanda and I and some foodie friends put together the best damn food and drink guide on the internet. And it's really great because we have no affiliate links and we're not doing anything other than we're like foodie gift givers and receivers. And we love, shouting out small businesses and stuff. So we share a whole bunch of these things. It doesn't rank anywhere, right? Like it cannot possibly compete against whatever Good Housekeeping and food52.com and Eater's gift list. It's way better than all of those. Like, no offense to them, but they're phoning it in. They're going for affiliate codes. They're looking for, their partners and whatever. Some of them have a few fine selections, but our gift guide is like amazing. If you buy gifts from there and you give them to folks, like it's just way, way better. One of my biggest frustrations is people in the SEO world who have seen this leak. I see this in my LinkedIn feed like crazy the last 2 weeks, who are like, oh, I looked at the leak. I read the stuff from Mike and Rand and Erfan and everybody else. And, it's just create good content. And I had this like, oh my God, bro, no, what are you talking about? When has SEO ever been create good content? If you're taking that away, you are not a serious practitioner. Like you're just not paying attention, and it hurts my heart. It really does. I mean, I don't even practice SEO anymore. You can tell from SparkToro I don't practice SEO anymore. But my friends, like SEO is complicated. And if you don't understand all the interactions between like, oh, wait, they might be topically considering this. And oh, wait, these kinds of links might not help me. And oh, this Chrome data is being used in these ways. And oh, the local radius, that's my problem. Then, yeah, I'm sorry. I get fired up about that kind of thing.
I love
that
it.
one kills me. That one kills me. And also people are like, oh yeah, we knew all this already. No, you didn't.
Get out of here.
14,000. Yeah. No, there's always things that you can test, but I'm with you. Like test it, right? You're not going to just take it verbatim because you don't know how much it's weighted or what the implications are.
Yeah, Will Reynolds was staying at my house this last week, and like we probably spent 2 hours talking about all the shit we got wrong, right? When we're looking through, I was like, if you had told me 2 weeks ago that Google called homepage PageRank for every document, I'd have been like, get out of here. No way, man. Homepage PageRank, but there it is. Homepage PageRank. This must be called for every document. You know, you're like, oh, damn.
So Rand, let's get to your CTR thing.
Yeah.
Everybody is totally in the chat. They want to get involved. So what are we searching? Good. What are we clicking? Do you need to share your screen?
I just wanted to screenshot the result before anybody goes to it. But now let me share my screen.
Okay.
We're going to share this search. So this is what you're going to, nope, that's not it. Is that it? Yes. So are you now seeing a Google search result?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Vietnamese restaurant, Seattle.
Exactly. Vietnamese restaurant, Seattle. And I want you to hit enter. And these three results, it might be slightly different depending on where you are. You might see somewhat different results. But what I'd like you to do is click on more places. If you're in your mobile experience, this will take you to the Maps interface, I believe, or your Maps app. And then I want you to scroll down a little bit. We're going to scroll until we get to Tanvi. And here's why I'm going to tell you to click Tanvi, because 2 decades ago, when Geraldine and I, my wife and I, were in college, we used to go to this place, and there was a server there named Iris who was just incredibly sweet to us. She'd bring us free stuff all the time. And 20 years later, I ordered delivery from Tanvi, and Iris put a note on the bag. She remembered our name, and she put a note on the bag, and she was like, she included some free stuff in there, and the note had a little heart on it and her name. Aww. Just the sweetest thing in the world. And the food is very, very good also, as you'd expect from a Vietnamese place in Seattle. So click on Tanvi, and then we're going to click on the website. So we're going to go to their website, which is, they did a nice job with this website. Like they got some drone stuff. Anyway, what I want you to do is just stay on the website for a few minutes. We're just going to let this play. And then if it doesn't show up for you, keep scrolling down, but you should see this result eventually.
Rand, can you make your screen bigger? The people are having difficulty seeing it.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
it was on page 2 for me. I just did it now. So you might have to go to page 2. Like I know Rand, you saw it up higher. Obviously it's local to you.
Possible. So let's here, I'll walk you through it one more time. So go Google Seattle, Vietnamese restaurant, Seattle. Then we're going to click more places. Can you see my screen okay now?
Yep.
Okay. More places. And then we're going to scroll. And if we have to, we're going to go to page 2, right? Or whatever it is.
It.
But yeah. I'm just saying for people who, but the one we're looking for is Tanvi, family-run Vietnamese eatery on 4226 University Way. We're going to click on their result. It'll show you this little overlay, and then we're going to go to the website. And the website is going to give us that thing.
If you guys are in the chat, share your screenshots too, like of what your page looks like. I think it'd be cool to compare some different before pictures.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, if some folks want to take some screenshots. Anyway, all I'm asking is just, stay on this website for a little bit. Don't click back to the Google search result. That will suggest to Google potentially, we're not sure, but potentially that squash click. What are those called when they bounce back? The pogo sticking thing in the docs, Mike? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't remember that specifically in there.
It's like when you change your search query or when you choose a different result, right? And then they have a weighting for that or whatever. But in any case, all right. So hopefully this will result in something interesting. It might not though, right? Because there's no other signals around it. I don't know how many of us are actually going to do it. It might be a couple hundred. It's obviously time bound, right? It's not like we're doing this over the course of weeks. So it's very possible this won't work. I don't want to suggest it will. Years ago, it used to. Obviously, Google built some things to try and control for that. And we'll see.
I'm hungry now. Thanks a lot.
Okay. There's going to be a lot of Vietnamese delivery all around the nation because of this.
I can't even tell you how many questions we did not get to. There are so many. There was one that I wanted to just quickly bring up here because I think it's a quick answer. Google Analytics data, anything around that?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Perfect.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's all Chrome, right? Chrome.
Why do you need GA if you got Chrome?
Yeah. More data. All right. So there's a ton of questions here. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter, and I'll do my best to try and flag down answers. But Rand, where can people find you if they have follow-up questions or want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, gosh. So I run a company called SparkToro, which does not work directly in SEO, but I'm always happy to help folks or point you to good people like Mike and Joy. So I'm Rand at SparkToro.com. I'm very active on Threads, where I'm Rand DeRuiter, my wife's last name, and on LinkedIn, where I'm Rand Fishkin.
All right, Mike, what about you?
Right there at iPullRank on all the things. You can email me, Mike at iPullRank.com. iPullRank.com is the website. And yeah, that's all I got.
All right. And I just want to make sure we shout out our next webinar, which is happening in July. We're going to be talking to Aaron Weike about things you need to know about contact forms and if these contact forms that you have set up on your website are actually sabotaging your leads. He's got some data that he hasn't released yet that he's going to be sharing with us, which should be very actionable and interesting. So make sure you scan that QR code to get notified. All right. I'm going to try to just rapid fire a couple questions here. We got 2 minutes.
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. So does Google penalize weird sites? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
There's stuff in there about the quality rater things. So if quality raters think your site looks sketchy, that could have an impact.
All right. And we're looking for short answers here because I'm going to go through a bunch of these. All right. This one, is there any indications on how this impacts multi-location businesses?
There's a chain thing in there. You can search for it and see. I don't know exactly what it says, but David Min broke it down a little bit in his article.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, one thing to note, and I think you said this at MozCon, Rand, is that they try to localize everything. Like they're trying to understand your query as a local result, even when it's not local queries.
Yes. And this is a good one. Authorship best practices.
I mean, this is frustrating, I think, especially for folks who get married and take a new name, but or change their name for any other reason. But there's definitely an author authority that follows you around, and they try and associate, turn you into an entity as an author, and then references to that matter.
Yep. And they vectorize the authors in that way.
Yeah.
This is a good one. And how much do you need to test essentially to feel comfortable finding a correlation?
Totally depends on the test. I mean, for example, if let's say an hour from now, we all search and Tan V is the #1 Vietnamese restaurant in Seattle all across the nation in maps, we'd be like, do we really need to test that again?
Yeah.
Probably not. That's pretty proof positive. But, would we like to verify it a few more times just so? Sure. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, everybody could just, search Google Leak and click on the iPullRank result, and then we can check back in an hour and see what happens.
Man, the fact that we don't rank for Google Leak really, that rubbed me the wrong way, man.
Yeah, maybe it's your topical authority, Rand, because you're. I don't know. All right. So yeah, our rule here internally is 3. If we can test it on 3 different businesses, 3 different industries, and get the exact same result, then we're pretty confident. And we continue to, again, measure. I would never stop measuring, no matter how confident you are.
Love that.
We are at time. I really want to respect your guys' time. Thank you so much for coming and taking an hour out of your day to meet with us. I can tell you right now, all the comments here, everyone really, really appreciates it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Joy, I will say you are a superb moderator, and I hope other people learn from your example of how to take 2 characters and get the best from them.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. See you guys next time.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye.